And good evening. I am your host, your friend, the Michigan archaeologist, a little bit dusty, even a little bit old. Welcome aboard tonight. Hey, we got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the most notorious hoax in archaeological history of the United States, and it all centers around Michigan. Actually, Montcalm, Michigan, and Melissa and I did a lot of research on this and spent a lot of time looking at this particular subject. Have we not?
Spent a lot of time right there, you know, between going to Lansing and Grand Rapids and lots of those
Ann
areas. Ann Arbor, being able to talk to them a lot, and actually have a chance to look at the artifact we're talking about today. We use the term artifact here very loosely.
Yes, when it comes to these particular artifacts, yes. However, they are being held in museums and libraries. They do have some historical significance now.
Absolutely.
So they belong in those museums. They belong, but not for the purpose of normal artifacts.
Right. Not to really serve a
Archaeological.
Yeah. More to serve a ethical point. If that's a good word for it.
I think it's an excellent point. But what we're talking about is some refer to the relics we're talking about as the Michigan Relics.
The Michigan Relics.
Some refer to it as the Scotford hoaxes. Some refer to the Soper.
Yep, the Soper frauds.
Soper frauds. And the fact is that this all started right around in the late 1800s. And we have to remember this is shortly after the Civil War. The studies of Darwin was becoming famous, so people were starting to question the origins of where people came from, how they made it around, everything else. And there was a big push at this point of not the type of diffusionism that I teach. It was more of a type of diffusionism to turn America white before there was anyone here.
Right. That was a big push, was to try to do the best they could in that instance.
Right. And so this is also the time when you had people going around doing shows saying, hey, there's a sucker born every minute. And all sorts of hoaxes were coming forward. And so a guy by the name of Scotford, James Scotford, kind of made himself well known as knowing antiques. And then he started producing some artifacts and claiming they were something they weren't. Now, before I get too deep into this, one of the reasons I'm talking about this, or the reason we're talking about this, is just a few weeks ago on an archaeological social media site, and I told Alyssa about it. There was somebody on there saying, I went and I investigated these artifacts, and he insinuated that they were real. And I said, hey, listen.
I will tell you from a first glance look that they have every single one of the artifacts that we've seen up in Lansing.
And we went to the research museum.
And the ones at the research museum all had the same exact signature.
Yeah, they had signatures on it. That's the first thing. The second thing is some of these were made out of scrap metal where they had rivet holes in it.
Right.
And
some of them were made out of pieces of slate.
Right. And the most telling reason you can know that these artifacts were frauds. And folks, we're going to try to get some pictures up from some of our trips up on our webpage and on Facebook in the next couple of days of these. But the most telling thing that lets us know they were fakes was James Scotford's own daughter said that her brothers and her dad were in their barn creating these artifacts and that they were fraud right from the get-go.
Right.
That's the first thing that tells us, they may not be real. It's our family members are saying, hey, we watched them make these frauds. They're fake. Okay. The second one is, like we said, they all continue carried a signature mark on them.
Right.
One from another, no matter where they were found, they all carried some of the same signature marks. Blending different time era languages involved with it. And some of it didn't even make sense. And again, they found an arrowhead made out of copper, except it was flat and pounded, and it didn't look like an arrowhead. Definitely nothing from that time.
Right.
What they're saying it was from. Every artifact found was from it. Now, when they started coming out with these in the 1898, there was some people that thought it was real. They took Scotford at his word, and they bit the hook. You know, hook, line, and sinker.
I guess I want to talk a little bit about who Scotford was.
Okay. Go ahead. Oh, you want me to? Okay. Scotford was self-proclaimed archaeologist. He had no training. He knew a little bit about antiques. And just on context, he claimed that he discovered a series of artifacts in Montreal. And then he started showing them up. And the priests in the area thought they were real.
Yeah, that was so correct.
No, so
Sorry.
Father Thomas is but Soper, we get into Soper in a second. He was a real threat. But he started taking people out into these fields, preparing stuff, and then taking them out so people could find stuff in these fields. And saying, look what I found.
Using, your secret profession of sleight of hand and
Yeah.
things like that. For those of you that don't know, we have a sleight magician in our hands.
But I don't use that one in my science.
Not in our science. Very, very separate from this, but something that he can use other days. But unfortunately, Scotford used that as a way to
Con people.
con people and basically gave them a pay me to help you dig up your own artifact.
Right. And I want to say this, that there was good and bad that came out of this time. Because it really helped bring ethics into a science I love very much, archaeology. Because back then, people were just bringing anything and saying, look, I found these great artifacts, and didn't cause people to really research it. So in one way, because he came up with this fraud, everything that was found was automatically discarded. That's a bad thing. We know from the journal of the Bureau of Ethnology and from writings of the Smithsonian, everything was supposed to be discounted. All of a sudden, anything found, because of these frauds, anything found
that replicated the ancient Near East
right.
was immediately to be discounted and considered a fraud. And that's right in the findings of the Bureau of Ethnology's.
And it was a declaration of the Smithson family, which is where we got the Smithsonian lab or museums from. And that meant anything that could even look at anything pre-Columbian was to be discounted immediately, which means you're basically throwing science out the window because one person in one small area of Michigan came up with a bunch of fake artifacts, but all isolated around the area of Montgomery County.
And unfortunately, over 3,000 artifacts in Michigan have just been discounted and told that they were a fraud without any further investigation.
Because of
the silver style frauds.
So that's the bad thing of this,
Right.
is it pretty much said, we're not going to look at anything that might represent pre-Columbian visitation to the United States because of Scotford.
Right.
The good thing that came out of it, and I do think this is a good thing, is it caused us to be skeptical. I've said this many times before. She'll probably tell you, she's heard this a billion times from me before. My students used to hear it from me in every class. Is that how do I put this? I see this so often, and now I'm going to think. And the whole concept is that, what's the word I'm looking for? Is just totally slipped me.
Controversy?
Controversy. Thank you. Controversy is the mother's milk of archaeology. And I was hoping she was going to jump into that just so I could prove my point that I say it so often that boom.
Controversy is the
Mother's milk of
mother's milk of archaeology.
Yes.
And yes, I definitely hear that one
so
3 to 4 times a week.
So here we have a case where now everything should be looked at controversial. It should be looked skeptically, but it should not be discounted.
No.
Until you find rivet holes in the metal, and or you get witnesses that, hey, these were fraudulent. My brothers made them in the barn with my dad, type thing. But I think it added a point of we have to discuss artifacts.
Absolutely.
We can't just throw them away. So that good came out of it, and I do think that's good. So we got a give and take here. I mean, we got this controversy: is it was a good thing or a bad thing? All in all, the guy was a con artist.
Right.
And he was selling this stuff for great money. He was trying to sell stuff to the museums, and including the Smithsonian. Look at all these great artifacts. And because there was no...
Well, even the Kelsey said that they received a box of these just laying
on
their back porch.
Yeah, Kelsey Museum. By the way, if you have the chance, go see the Kelsey Museum in Ann Arbor. It's a wonderful museum. But yeah, somebody just dropped a box of these Soper frauds saying, hey, we don't know what to do with these artifacts from Scotford. Here, you take them. And now they're sitting in the research museum. Most of them are sitting in the research museum or in the museum in Lansing.
Right.
In the library there. And they keep it to show, first, I think how gullible we were back then. Because when you look at that, you look at it and you say, these can't be real. Which is what upset me about this one site.
You also have to look at it as Scotford's role. I mean, he said he was a credible person when it came to antiques and things like that. So he was really able to exploit this and was trying to exploit like a widespread desire to uncover these lost chapters of human history, or so he put it.
Right, and I will say the giveaway though, the absolute giveaway that she says, okay, there's something wrong here, is Michigan had Secretary of State had a bad reputation of being less than honorable. Matter of fact, he resigned from office as I think it was Secretary of State of Michigan. Soper.
Yeah,
and he goes in and jumps into this con with Scotford. And Soper, everyone knew was a crook, So as soon as Soper dove into it, though, that should have been the warning sign to everybody, in my opinion.
But he thought that his involvement really was there to like serve a legitimization of Scotford's claims in eyes of like investors, general public, and just trying to instill a bunch of confidence in this hoax.
And so the next thing we have to look is on this is we're going back again, late 1800s, early 1900s, when these are coming out. And people were still grabbing a hold. And I want to explain something on this. Is they're trying to say that this was all stuff that was brought here BCE, before Common Era or before Christ.
Yeah.
I take either one, just so you know. They're saying that there's BCE. And yet, they all had religious engravings on them. Some of them, New Testament. And if it's New Testament, it's definitely AD, right?
Right.
And for a while there, for a short time, when they started coming out, the Church of Latter-day Saints grabbed a hold of it and said, look, here's proof, And then when people like Kelsey and everything else is proving them fraud, they backed off.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, they've been proven to be fraud. We're not going to sit there and push it. But there are still people within that organization, not with, how do I say, that still follow that organization that want to give it credence, even though the Church of Latter-day Saints no longer does. And that brings me to this guy that was on the social media for archaeology, the set I was on. That was very recently trying to give it credence again. He was one of those members that tried to say, look, it proves the Church of Latter-day Saints, even though everyone knows
that these have been proven
that's been proven big time fraud.
Right.
So here's my problem with this. And folks, like I said, we'll get pictures in the next few days on these frauds. Here's my big problem with all of this is I do believe that this country was visited before Columbus.
Absolutely.
Now, this is what our project is all about, is finding out, did they actually visit? We are looking at some of these other relics and saying, okay, let's weigh these out and see where they go. And we have reasons to believe that they're legitimate.
Right, we have reasons to believe that they're legitimate, but when things like the social stopper frauds come into play, and they came out around the same times as even some of the what we believe to be legitimate artifacts were found, unfortunately, it makes those get questioned and discounted a lot more heavily than they would have.
And again, I don't mind them being questioned.
Right.
But I do have a big problem with discounting it with that for no reason.
Right.
Or saying it's legitimate for no reason. Perfect example is when you and I, we went up and we visited the museum up in St. Ignace. And
the Fort Museum.
Yeah.
Yep.
And now they're in the process of moving this wonderful museum, but they have part of the Newberry tablet there.
Right, and we had the greatest pleasure of being able to go up there.
They were wonderful.
Absolutely.
So we're up there, we're checking this out. Now I had never touched, been around, seen, been in part of the story of the Newberry tablet story since it's found. And we walk into the museum, and I walk in, I look over, she says, well, part of the tablet's over there, and I look at it, and I'm looking at the top edge of the tablet, because they have a big,
they
laying
had it
laying on its side, and I says, what has anybody ever done with that writing on the top? And she says, what writing?
What writing are you
talking about? Because it's just faded letters. Right. And if you didn't know the language it is, it wouldn't even look like letters.
But our linguistics major, of course.
and I look at it, I said, no, there's writing on the top. And I sit there, and through the glass, I didn't touch the stone at this point. Through the glass, I said, look, you got this letter here, you got this letter here, you got this letter here. And it translates Hayam, which means the sea, literally translates into the sea in Proto-Hebrew. And she says, you're kidding me. I said, no, it's right here. Now, the front of the stone got discarded early on because I didn't know what language it was.
Right. And we've now uncovered some of that language to be
a blend.
A blend of Linear A and Linear
B. Linear B, and Hittite.
I apologize.
And so it's a combination, and these are all very symbolic, linguistic sounding letters. So you could almost blend them together and still come up with words.
Okay.
All right. But most of it is Linear A. The bulk is Linear A, but there is some Hittite, there is some
unfortunately,
Linear B.
When it comes to decoding Linear A, we don't have a complete.
Yeah, we don't have a complete picture to fully translate that from tablet. Now,
well, even just finding enough Linear A to be able to translate it to a general.
So, but then we had people like Bell.
Right.
Fell. Barry Fell. Thank you. I was trying to combine these two.
Right.
Barry Fell thought it was possibly something different, and he thought it might be ancient Scottish or Gaelic or something like that.
Right.
And he was only working with what he had, and he came up with a translation using his methodology, which I don't agree with, and I don't believe in. But I will say with Barry Fell is he was working only with what he had at the time. Same as what you and I are doing.
Absolutely. We're working with the tools that we have in front of us, the access and the resources that we have.
Right.
Um,
And as we get more and more on linear A, linear B, we'll know more and more on what that translation is. But I would feel real foolish. I could take shots on part of it, saying this is what it's talking
but what
about.
I do know and what I do like is that when Barry Feld took a look at this, when he took a look at the Newberry tablet, he took a look at the language that he believed to be on the front, mathematically he looked at it and said, no, this does seem like legitimate language.
And
that at least gives us something.
And it's not actually that far off, even if you apply it to the linear A and linear B on some of the stuff he does, using the mathematics, saying, okay, there's similarities in languages as you go, and there is. So this looks like it's got so many angles on it. In the Phoenician alphabet, that could be like the letter what we use as A. So let's make it that A sound, give it that A meaning type thing. And he tried a linguistic approach like that. As a linguist, I don't agree with that approach, but it actually, in some cases, made sense.
Right.
And so we went up there with the idea that we were going to question this. And what really started giving me credit that this stone might be real is no one has ever tried to cash in on that writing on the top.
Right.
Oh, and
Now,
all this time.
The only thing is obviously controversy is the mother's archaeology.
Yeah.
The mother's milk archaeology, but we also have to look at the other side of it. Unfortunately, we don't know
When that appeared on it. Because no one mentioned it.
No one mentioned it, and unfortunately, there wasn't a proper chain of custody for this tablet. This tablet sat in a barn for many, many years.
Well, yeah. Well, the government and the Smithsonian said it can't be real because it doesn't match what the native population at the time would have been doing. So because it doesn't match what the native population did, it must be a fraud. They discounted it. So the finder of it says, fine, it's not real. And so, someone made it up and threw it in my yard and buried it in the tree roots or something.
Right.
And he ends up throwing it in this garage. It gets run over by horses and tractors and everything else over the years. Gets busted up, along with 3 idols found with it.
Right.
And because he takes the Smithsonian at their word that it's a fraud. And then as more and more comes out about it, and they say, hey, no, this is a real language on here.
And up in Newberry, at the museum, they have a new museum up in Newberry with small pieces of the tablet as well. They were actually able to show us new paperwork that came from the Smithsonian, and that paperwork directly said
because it doesn't match what
because it doesn't match any native manufacturer of the Great Lakes region, that it is to be considered a fraud.
Right. And they're assuming, basically, they're assuming it's fraud.
Yep. And just because it didn't look like anything of Indian manufacturer.
Can you post that in my pictures also, that article?
I believe I can.
Okay. Don't ask me to ever post anything on the website. I can dig dirt all day long. But
I will say I am still learning when it comes to our marketing and our website and things like that. So bear with me if it takes some time to get some things up, as I am still working through the logistics of working the website in general.
Yeah, and you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
So with this in mind, we go up there and we look at this. And by the way, I've got to give a shout out to our friend Charlie up there. This summer, we're hoping to be up there giving a lecture at the
Nama Inn.
The Nama Inn. Is it Nama or Nama?
We're gonna have to.
It means sturgeon in Ojibwe.
Now you sound like Charlie.
Yeah, shout out to Charlie up at the Nama Inn. And I'm gonna say Nama.
No.
Well, you say Nama, and one of us two is gonna be right. And so I'll say Nama, you say Nama, and that way Charlie would say, hey, Alyssa, Rick is right again.
Or if I happen to be right, you won't say that you were wrong.
Yeah, he'd be happy to say that.
Yeah.
Not me.
Exactly.
But so we're up there and we're investigating this, and here's the problem: is everything now is a fraud. And there what he found. Charlie found this beautiful little stone
And we did a podcast on that stone back in September, October?
Yeah, and that stone is definitely, without any question whatsoever, Egyptian.
Absolutely, and I don't think there's been any question to the stone's legitimacy at all. Like it's
None.
been treated as an artifact.
Don't know, and I discount this as
Well,
an
I mean,
amulet
even the way
thing.
he found it.
Yeah,
Even the way he found it, it's not like he was searching for artifacts or anything like that. I don't even think Charlie knew the first thing about archaeology before.
no, he found something really neat, and people started saying, "Hey, you got something here." He said, "Okay."
Right.
He keeps it in a crown royal.
Yes, he does.
Don't do that, Charlie. But the point being is, everything, when people start talking about any pre-Columbian visit now, because of the harassment on the silver frogs, it's always discounted. Take a look at Back Creek Cave finding in Tennessee
Yeah,
that had Proto-Hebrew writing. Now we have a reason, and we'll cover this more in another podcast. We have a reason to think why all the different Mediterranean sites are all coming into play, all about the same time, coming over, same era. There is a great explanation to that, and we'll cover that in a few podcasts off.
yeah. In a future episode, we're going to get into a little bit more about what we think behind our theory and
Yeah.
the working mechanics of it.
Our next one's going to be though on the Thera,
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about
Volcanic.
Era and
Yeah.
about the eruption over there.
which actually leads into our study. So that's a good place to start. So here we have the Soper Scotford findings. And I will say there was a huge movement after they came out, and I kind of hinted towards it before, where they tried to basically knock the Native Americans out of the history of this continent early on.
Absolutely, and I will make a promise to you guys right now that is absolutely not what we are doing.
No, actually, I'm trying to prove that some of the oral histories of our native
Or native
Friends.
chiefs and
are that their oral histories actually make sense.
and their oral traditions and tales
Yep.
of how they got here are
Or people they met.
right. So we definitely don't want to bring any controversy to that aspect. We want you guys to be on the same page with us here as we're
Not
not
gonna
trying to discount their culture at
If
all.
there's controversy that can be made, I want to make it.
Well, absolutely controversy, but I guess I don't want there to be any.
We're not intentionally trying to discount whole people's history. Matter of fact, I think their history and their oral histories make total sense. I grew up with my father going to Six Nations in Brantford and going up to Wampo Island and talking and hearing the histories. And I grew up listening to these oral histories.
Right, and what I'd like to do is be able to uncover more of their history and be able to educate
We
more.
spent a lot of time up in St. Davis Museum up there, uncovering some of their oral histories. And I think any book they had in that museum that even touched on the oral histories of the native people up there, especially the Ojibwe and the Iroquois,
Right.
which they fought against each other. They did not get along. These were not people that said, "Hey, cool." No, they didn't get along, and they were constantly fighting. But we took all their oral histories, any books that had any of them, just so we could delve in deeper into their oral histories. So we're not trying to do like the early diffusionists. Is how I put it.
Yeah, no,
Um,
we're more trying to uncover.
How different cultures did impact each other, but not eliminate cultures.
Right. We don't want to eliminate anyone, and we really want to be able to find the actual origin stories of this nation.
Yeah.
And be able to educate on that aspect as opposed. We don't want to discount anyone's culture.
So, what was the public's reaction when they first started coming out? Scotford and
The initial announcement of it really led to a lot of excitement, a lot of, local newspapers, and they were really quick to report on this sensational discovery, often embellishing the narrative to attract readers, and public exhibits were even arranged to display the relics.
they were literally looking at rewriting history books. The whole narratives and everything else at that time were being changed by what Scotford did. Um, and the problem was that people that really love the science of archaeology, like Kelsey, who I admire, came up and said, it doesn't make sense. It's not real. Here's why. And he laid out all the arguments why it didn't make, and pretty much that's when family members started coming out against scoffers that they're not real. And the reason I'm having this discussion, and the reason I think we need to have this discussion is so people understand we're not willing to just grab a hold of anything just because it might fit what our narrative or what our project thinks is going to prove. If in the end things prove me wrong and proves the project
okay
wrong,
with that.
I'm fine with that because at least then we are getting more answers,
We're uncovering, at that point, we'd at least be uncovering
more truth.
more truth and more history, and I think as a society, we might need that right now.
I think so too. And it was kind of like when you and I brought this up a little bit on your last one, when you and I went out to Massachusetts and we were looking at a very specific stone that for the longest time, and again, it's not in question the authenticity of the antiquity of this stone.
Correct.
Matter of fact, it had been used as a stepping stone into an old Indian gathering place. And we went to look at this because the writing on it shared commonalities with that of
We talked a little bit about this in our last podcast here.
It shared commonality with some of the markings and engravings that were on the Newberry stone.
Right.
And so here we are, and that did catch our attention because this particular stone, no one's questioning it, but the writing shares similarities. But the bias.
Well, the bias because it's in the right area, first off.
Uh-huh.
It's not here within Michigan where we had, unfortunately, the silver stopper fought abroad. So there wasn't as much question behind the antiquity of it.
But that's not the bias I'm talking about. The bias I'm talking about were those that who all of a sudden says, we don't want people to think that this was pre-Columbian. You remember that?
Yeah.
They were dead set against that. And we don't want to, they were concerned that we were doing like the old diffusionists or other people were doing like the old diffusionists. And I think I put an at ease over that. That wasn't my goal.
To some aspect, I think so.
But you have an automatic, if you're trying to prove this, we don't want to talk to you.
Oh, absolutely.
And I said, well, I just want to prove the truth of what happened.
Right.
But I'm not going to close any doors. You know, we have to investigate every artifact.
And as always, if you guys have any questions or comments, throw them in the chat on YouTube here, and I can take a look at those and we can get those questions answered for you.
But they did match the Newberry stone.
They did mention that.
And guess what? The Newberry stone and the stone out in Massachusetts, none of them matched Soper or Scottford's fraud.
No, none of even the same type of language.
No, it was very unique.
Or I guess not so much language. None of the same type of art.
And folks, if you're watching this and all of a sudden our screen changes back and forth, there's nothing wrong with your computer. We have these motion sensor lights on there, and unless we get Alyssa doing jumping jacks here throughout the whole thing, they're going to go on and off as it catches movement. But we'll try to get that fixed before the next one.
Working on that. They're a little bit out of my reach.
So there is some, I want to say that with Soper, everyone knew in Lansing he was a crook.
Right.
I really believe that. But there were people, you understand, they weren't saturated with social media back then. They couldn't go to their Facebook and say, oh, look what Soper was accused of today. I mean, news was slow traveling.
Right.
And not everyone read the newspaper. Not everyone was able to read newspaper, whether it be getting it or actually educated to read.
Right.
So not everyone knew exactly what Soper was or what he was capable of doing. They just knew that he was a prominent politician that served in the Michigan government, and therefore, when he came through and says, "Hey, look what we got here, it's real," a lot of people did jump on board, and because he had worked with the government, just said, "Okay, it must be real."
Right.
So, and that you kind of alluded to that earlier, that he did bring a level of authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because, I mean, he was a former Secretary of State, people were supposed to trust him. He was
Today,
supposed
that
to be
authenticity is lost because we know who he is and what he did.
Right, right. But at the time, he was a politician. He was supposed to be a man of great credibility.
So we discussed who did it, and that he had his sons making these in the barn,
Right.
and family members have testified to this. That the daughter, Scofford's daughter, said, "Hey, my dad had them in there making these for us," and they were laughing about it.
Mhm.
We talked about how it affects archaeology today, and I think that's very important. And I do appreciate the fact that it does cause conversation. Someone who I work with at the university, he said, Kelsey proved all these to be hoaxes. I said, yes, he did. Well, then he pretty much jumped on the bandwagon of, well, then all artifacts have to be hoaxes. No, not all artifacts have to be hoaxes. Because we're finding artifacts all over the country, and how do you explain that?
Right.
Now, if you take the diffusionist view, like I do, like one culture can teach another culture and can change cultures, when they're intermixed. When you start seeing very strong commonalities across the spectrum, you have to say, well, how was that influenced? It can't just be by accident. I'm not one of these people that believe in coincidence as far as inventions. Everyone came up with the same invention at the same time just because they had to.
Well, and that's the same, the telephone.
Yeah, that happened with the telephone.
It happened exactly with the telephone.
Except it didn't. It did, but it didn't.
Right.
What we're talking about is simultaneous invention. Is that things just by accident, two people come up with the same idea because that's just where the ideas evolve. And people who believe in simultaneous invention use the telephone
Absolutely.
as proof of
So-
simultaneous invention.
Obviously we all know the story of Alexander Graham Bell.
Right.
Invented the telephone.
Yeah, and the reason is because he got the patent in a few hours before somebody else got a patent in.
Right.
Who invented it at the same time. But they're saying, look, two people at the same time invented it, and it was just Alexander Graham Bell got the patent office, and therefore he gets credit for it. But there's more to the story than that. The story is the other guy who invented it worked for Western Union.
Was it Western Union?
I think so. It was either Western Union or Wells Fargo. Sorry, worked for Wells Fargo, and and they also did most of the work on the telegraph lines.
Right.
It was Western Union.
Telegram.
Yeah, telegraph. So Western Union put out a prize to anyone who could find a better way to utilize the telegram lines because they were so full of people sending telegrams, that they were jamming them up. And so they wanted to find a way to put a voice across those lines. And they put out like $1 million prize to whoever could do it. One of the people worked for that company that was putting up the $1 million prize. And they also knew Graham was working on it, trying to get the million, and they were spying on each other. So it wasn't so simultaneous as what people thought. You had people from both offices spying on each other on who was doing what, and using what methodology, and everything else. And it was just a matter of who could spy the best.
Who could spy the best, and who was the fastest run to that patent office?
And who was the fastest run to the patent office. So it really wasn't simultaneous invention. It was prompted because there was a very large money put on it, and the players knew each other. And because of that, it was a close race. And it literally was who could make it that day to the patent office. And on Valentine's Day that year, it was Alexander Graham Bell. And we see that same type of thing over and over again with electricity and everything else. There was a big competition on who's going to light up the country. You know, for the longest time, Tesla was winning that thing.
Right.
At the Chicago World Fair. That was lit up not by Edison, that was lit up by Tesla.
Yep.
The whole city of Chicago finally lit up by Tesla at the World's Fair showing his great invention. But because of politics and struggling and back and forth, it ended up everything going to Edison. Not so much simultaneous invention. Matter of fact, Tesla at one point worked for Edison. But that's one argument of simultaneous invention is how all these different things across the country can look so similar. This type of artwork, it was just standard right here, so it must have been over across the country here, or this type of writing manufacturing, and it doesn't make sense. There's, as you and I saw, I can go to a site, and I said, if this is a site that we think is part of our project, show me. And I'm looking for something very, very specific. I said, show me the labyrinth. Show me the spiral stones. And we went to one site in New Hampshire.
Yeah, we went up to.
And I said, if this is part of this site, there has to be a spiral. There has to be a circle within a circle within a circle type concept.
And we're walking through a field.
We're walking through a field, and the guy says, well, I'll keep my eyes open for something like that. And I look and I says, you caught it. He said, it's right here. And I looked down like, yeah, it's right here.
Because we were walking through the field, and I was taking photos. And I looked down, and I go and stand on a rock. Rick, go do me a favor, go stand on that rock over there. And Rick's wife was with us as well, so I asked Elaine, I said, Elaine, go stand on that rock over there, and who was with us? Was it Scott? Is that his name?
James.
James was with us as well.
Yeah.
But we had asked, and that was
Dennis.
Dennis Scott. Dennis.
We'll go with Dennis for now.
Yeah.
And so
Dennis Stone. I apologize.
and he was the owner of the site, and he looked at it and said, "Wow, we're gonna have to get the archaeologists back out here."
Right, but I had looked at all of them. I said, "Hey, go stand on those stones there," and we seen that we were starting to create a circle pattern. And
then we
stepped
moved in.
back. Well, yeah, we moved in, and we were able to do it even more.
Yeah.
And then we were able to move back out further and able to find another circle within a circle.
Yeah. And so, and we got that. Well, we went to Connecticut.
Right.
And we found that right away, and that in itself is a scary story.
Oh.
If
you, I don't think we've ever posted that video before, have we?
No, we might want to do that instead of one of my great humorous reels. One of these weeks we should do that. We got back. I'm running and I'm getting ready to put up.
We're in the Airbnb. We're all sitting there. What were we watching that night? We were watching Doctor Who.
Yep.
And we're sitting there, and he's hunched over the computer, working on going through the footage from that day. And he starts playing the video footage that I had taken, and I had taken this footage myself. And I was going over this spiral that we found in Connecticut at Gunjimon.
Yeah.
Gunjimon. And I'm going over with the GoPro, trying to get like a good aerial view of it. And I hear myself talking in the video, like we were chatting back and forth while we were looking at the spiral. And all I hear is this screeching wong wong start coming from the computer, and I look over and what the heck are you watching?
And my mouth is hanging open. I said, this can't be. And it's when she's over the thing. And then we lose the total camera picture.
Right. We thought we had just lost audio. And
well, we lost visual.
Right.
But the audio kept going.
Right.
So the screen goes black. as you're doing this overshot, and it's got this bizarre sound to it. And then I asked her to send it to me, and behind it, it almost sounds like, I hate to say this, it sounds like an aircraft crash in the background.
Okay.
And there's another point where it sounds like a baby crying, kind of.
And we're definitely making some stretches here.
We are, but I'm hearing these sounds. Where is this coming from? And so, and Alyssa said, we need to go back. We had such a tight schedule while we were out there.
Unfortunately, it was Wesley's birthday.
Yes.
And I had to get home. So I had to get home for my son's birthday that day. So I was flying out of Boston back.
Yeah. So it's like and then our point was, well, we're going to just drive home. And we never did make it back to get another video of that, which I definitely
think we definitely need to go back this summer.
And go check that out. But with that being said, we start finding these circles within circles, and then all of a sudden, Alyssa starts looking at sites across the United States and starts finding them again.
Yeah.
And like the big medicine wheel out west and everything else. And we start finding that they have directional lines.
A lot of them, well, even at, I apologize. Even in New Hampshire they call themselves American Stonehenge.
Yeah.
That's the site we're referring to and talking about, and thank you guys over there. You guys have been great to work with.
Yeah.
But they even believe their signs to be astrological.
Yeah. And so making connections.
Working with solstices and things of that sort.
But then we start finding them in Scotland.
Right.
And we start finding them in Europe. And we start finding them in Eastern Europe and into Asia.
Well, I mean, even within our own country, we're finding things like that in Arizona and New Mexico and Utah.
Right. So, and all these commonalities is what leads me away from simultaneous invention.
Right.
And what leads me to one culture
influencing
another, which is called diffusion. And so that is where we go with it, is we think that commonalities are there because of an interaction of cultures. And we're trying to see if the artifacts that are found actually lead to that answer. That is our project. The concept of copper being mined in Michigan, when Michigan didn't have a Bronze Age, during the time of the biggest Bronze Age hit in Mediterranean, also leads into where did all the copper go when there's like 1 billion pounds of copper missing? Right. Where did it go and why?
Right.
Is there a tie to the European and Mediterranean Bronze Age to the copper coming out of Michigan? Not enough there to be found being used by the tribes that would use it to make little trinkets.
Right.
I mean, we're talking 1 billion pounds of copper missing, right?
And that's not the new drill copper missing or anything like that, because there is new drills where there's copper that's gone missing, and they're very I was talking to someone and they were talking about how they went and stayed in Isle Royale. A buddy of theirs went and stayed on Isle Royale, and basically they were watched like a hawk until they got there to make sure that they didn't have stuff for drilling with them. Right.
Isle Royale is very well protected and needs to be. It's kind of like a crime site. That's how I look at any archaeological site. It needs to be dealt with
like an investigation.
So, why all this copper is being dug up at a time where it was not our Bronze Age over here? We did not have that Bronze Age. We were still in the Stone Age at that time. So why? So these are questions we're asking. Unfortunately, what we run across time and time again, as soon as we start talking about our theory, is a guy by the name of Scottford and a guy by the name of Soper.
They bring up the relics right away, the Michigan relics.
All the relics are fake. No, not all of them. The ones tied to Soper and Scottfield. Or Scottford
and Soper, yes, those are absolutely illegitimate frauds. And we know that by looking at them ourselves. We know that by everyone else looking at them. We know that by their own daughter saying, hey, no, Dad was making these.
And again, I'm going to say it, and then we can end it with this concept. I'm thankful for the frogs. I'm thankful they were found
Absolutely.
because it pushes the need of being cautious.
The need of caution and the need of
Question.
ethics and questioning
Yes,
when we're looking at archaeology.
I don't like it, as I said at the beginning, because it discounts too many artifacts that might be real.
Unfortunately.
Just because of the face value of the false relics, they have to say they all have to be false. I disagree with that. I think each relic needs to be investigated on its own merits, kind of like each person has to be judged on their own character.
On their own character
Um,
and your own interactions with that person.
so we got to do that.
I do want to end. We're gonna talk in a couple of weeks here.
About the volcanic eruption of Thera. Folks, do not compare that. You want to get me to the point where I lose my temper. Do not downplay that eruption in Thera and say, oh, it's just it's kind of like the Vesuvius of the Mediterranean. No, Vesuvius was a sneeze compared to Thera. It was a huge, probably one of the largest volcanic eruptions in the history of the world. Where
We'll get into that more in about
we'll get into more. But do not tell me, oh, it was just Vesuvius of the Mediterranean.
The other thing that I do want to bring up, that we talked about earlier, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be going a little bit deeper into our theory and our project and what we're working on.
Yes.
And if you want to dive a little bit into what that theory might be, we have Rick here has actually written a book that is selling at Barnes & Noble as well as Amazon called Trade Winds. Take a look at that. I believe it's available on e-reader, Kindle, as well as paper copy.
And I'll be the first to tell you, it is fiction, but it's based on
It's fiction based on what we believe a theory
could produce. Yeah.
So it's an enjoyable read. And any proceeds from that go directly to our project.
Absolutely. And with that being said,
Thank you for watching
we'll get that up on the
Legacies.
website again, and you can also find a link to the book.
Yep, I'll get a link to the book on the website as well as
Facebook.
Our Facebook page. Other than that, thank you for watching Lost Legacies podcast.
Yeah, we're just waiting for our cameraman to get back in and turn off the camera. Unless you want to go do it.
I got it.
All right. You folks have a great day. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Keep an eye out for my reveal coming up next week. It's a lot of fun.